Hey guys, it's Si from Ace Podcast Nation. On this channel, we feature podcast interviews and content on a variety of subjects, including mental health, football, wrestling, films, TV, music, conspiracy theories, and more. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell, and you'll be notified every time we upload a show. You can keep up to date on upcoming guests and shows on Twitter, which is at acecast_nation. You can suggest subjects for shows and ask questions for future guests on our Facebook page, which if you search Facebook is Ace Podcast Nation. And join the 900 odd people who jumped on board Facebook this week. So we've done a variety of shows this week. We started with the Avengers Endgame review podcast, which is doing very well. It was a good laugh, good fun. Then I had a show with Dr. Mohammed, which was a bit more serious. It was also, it was a really good show and it's been well received. Today we're back with the conspiracy theory show episode. It's technically episode 3, but it's kind of like episode 2 part 2. So the episode 2 was on aliens, but we kind of run out of time before we got to sort of crop circles and animal and human mutilations. As with previous shows on this subject, just because we discuss them doesn't mean that we believe them, but we are going to discuss the reasoning behind them. So are the rumors, evidence, things that have happened over the years. Some of the subjects or some of the stuff that we might go on to today, particularly if we go on to like the human and animal mutilation, might not be suitable for children, or certainly not pleasant, some of it. My guest, co-host, and regular on Ace Podcast Nation is Rhys. Evening, mate. You okay?
Yes. Are you all right, mate?
Yeah, I think we'll have a slightly shorter show this week. It won't be shorter than Monday when we've done the Avengers one. I think we've got to like 2 hours.
Mate. Almost as long as the film.
It was. And the thing is, like, we could have kept going as well. Like, it was just, we sort of got to 2 hours and it was like, right, gonna have to roll it up now.
Yeah, we have to rein it in.
Yeah, still be going on. So obviously it's been a couple of weeks because we had to postpone last week and stuff. The aliens, when we got into a bit of this and a bit of that, it's it's an interesting subject. The crop circles one, or the crop circles part of it, has always fascinated me because it's, I don't know, it's a weird one because some of the designs and the patterns that you see in some of these crop circles, which appear overnight, are just incredible. But I also have seen some sort of website and internet people who admit to faking them and using machinery and tools to do it to cause a fuss and whatnot. And also then you've got people who probably, there's probably people out there who just do it for art as well. Where do you stand on crop circles, mate?
Nowadays, with the machinery, technology, equipment we've got, you can do pretty much anything you'd want to in a night. They could make any shape, picture. They could do anything they wanted to in a night. But crop circles have been around for decades, if not centuries.
Yeah, 1600s is the first discovered.
Yeah,
1600s, if you think that's fucking long time ago.
All they'd have had back then would have been a scythe.
Yeah.
There's no way they could have made a perfect circle. Maybe with, 100 people doing it, or there's no way they could have done it back in that day and time with the equipment they had in the time frames that it was happening. So back then, there's an unexplained explanation. So it's got to be something. It was way beyond the technology of the time. I can't see it being a government thing because it's not really trying anything. I couldn't see a plausible explanation of it being a government thing. So to me, that's probably the most solid proof of there's life out there.
Yeah, and I think as well it goes back to what we discussed with the alien stuff as well on the previous two shows, was that with the pyramids, to build those things and to line up the lights and all that type of stuff, they just didn't have the technology to do it. And if you think like the first crop circles discovered in 1600s, and even I'm not particularly great with my history in terms of governments and stuff, but it wasn't like it is now, where you've got like the technology and the shady governments who are doing this, that, and the other. They wouldn't, even if the governments wanted to do it for whatever reason you could think of, they 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 wouldn't have had the technology to do it. Um, so since the 1600s, there's been more than 10,000, uh, crop circles or designs discovered. But obviously, a lot of them are completely unexplained. You never get to, there's never been an explanation, or there's never been sort of a reason given why they've appeared. Quite often they appear just over one night. It's not like a week-long thing. They're just not there and then they're there. And
Yeah.
it's obviously that adds to the mystery, doesn't it? And the intrigue is that you never quite find out where they come from.
But on the other flip side to this, like, we've got the technology to do all these things, etc., etc. But with all the CCTV and radio antennas and all the technology we've got, how have we not got a picture of something yet? That's the one thing that stops me believing.
But I don't think it's controversial to say that the governments of particularly the Western world, but all governments, it's not controversial to say that they keep things from the general public. They've got technology which is like 10, 15 years in advance of what we've got in the general public. So I mean, just because we haven't seen the pictures or the CCTV doesn't mean that they haven't got it. However, a lot of houses, a lot of shops, a lot of people who are not involved directly with the government have got CCTV. But then you've got people, there is, I suppose, if you only have to click on YouTube and search like UFO CCTV, and I'm sure it would come up with 100 videos of people have uploaded, and obviously it's trying to sift through the crap and the fake stuff. And
it does, and I've looked through hundreds of these videos, but you'll find, for argument's sake, I remember seeing one on a street in America, and there was 400 odd houses in this street. Loads of them had CCTV, but only one person had uploaded a video of a supposed alien. All the neighbours would have been talking. The first thing they'd have all done is check their CCTV.
Yeah,
and only one of them seen it, and that makes me a doubter.
Yeah, and I can see that. Like, I see what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? Like, with this day and age, you'd think you'd have had some sort of concrete proof. And I think in terms of like UFOs, I think a lot of the ones which are spotted by people or spotted on video or caught on this, that, and the other, I do think a lot of them are military aircraft. Like we discussed the big black triangles last time. That could easily be mistaken for like an alien craft because of how fast it moves and the shape of it. But it's actually that's a military thing. So I think it's difficult, isn't it? Then because like you can see pictures of like the Nazis making flying saucer, flying saucer shaped things. They were all up in that sort of thing. They were trying out new designs and shapes of flying objects, and they were, Hitler was well into like that type of like aliens and things like this.
Yeah.
So, it makes you think that why was he into it in the middle of World War II or whatever? Why was he a big part of his interest? Why was he in UFOs and building flying saucers? You know, it could be as something as simple as he wanted to build flying saucers to fly over Britain and scare people into thinking aliens had come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Be anything like that.
It could boil down to he was just a fucking crackpot.
Yeah. That's it. It's just a dick.
But it's true what you're saying, but it makes me think sort of they wouldn't have tried to build these UFOs and go so advanced into it like they did the Nazis. Look at the experiments and everything they were doing. They wouldn't have got that far into it and that advanced if they weren't 99% sure there's something out there, or there's, you know, technological advances beyond this earth, or whatever it might be. They must have had damn good reason to chase it.
Plus, why would they try and build a flying saucer? Because all flying devices, all things that had ever been created to fly, it has always been in like that plane shape, or like, obviously you see like the early days before planes, you had like the flapping wings and you know, all the different ways they tried to fly with these machines and devices. That why would you think a flying saucer would fly? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why would you think, oh, that, you know, that's the shape I want to build something to fly? Which makes me then sort of lean on the side of, well, maybe they knew something, or they'd seen something, or they'd had some sort of information from their spies or whatever, that, you know, there was something out there. But yeah, going back to the crop circles a bit, they obviously, like, a big part of the mystery is the fact that they just appear and no one knows what their purpose is. You know, and some of them span hundreds and hundreds of feet. I mean, and the entire pattern can be viewed like from, you know, a helicopter or a plane, and you could see this big, huge pattern, really detailed. And I just think, even with technology, to build something that intricate is quite difficult to do in one night in the dark. And remember as well, is like, you know, like farmers have got, you know, they'll have several fields in their farm, but if you had like a helicopter, for instance, flying over your fields to shine a light on it so that these people could make the crop circles, you'd hear it. Do you know what I mean?
That though, you can simplify that so easy with laser technology nowadays. One man could go out and do that crop circle in a night.
Yeah,
from the sky, you don't need big bright lights. Look at like kitchen fitters, things like that. We have little laser levels. We'll plonk it on our tripod. We hit a button, and it'll give us 83 different lines around the kitchen.
Yeah.
And like that, you just export onto a field. You have a 10, 15-foot tripod, and it could probably extend for half a mile to a mile, creating whatever pattern you want. And because it's lazy, you're going to be spot on with it. And with the cutting equipment we got nowadays, and some of the silence as well.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
They're doable nowadays. But like you say, back in the 1600s, no way on this earth was there any technology or any form of equipment they could have made them perfect circles in a night. They couldn't have done it.
Well, that's why you're on the show, Mitch, for the technical stuff. But yeah, it's such a weird thing to me because I can't see the point of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't see a reason for it. I can't, unless, you know, there's like some sort of hidden meaning or message in them. And even then, even if there was like this hidden code within these crop circles, I can't, for the life of me, really think of a reason why there would be like this hidden codes and these intricate designs on these fields in random farms. It's a weird one for me. I got to admit.
Could be? You just put an idea in my head. You know them? You know, you get gangs of like thieves will go around steal dogs, and they put a little marking on the wall.
Yeah. And
what if it's aliens going planet to planet, and these different crop circles? Stay away from them. This race, they're a bunch of wasters. Don't take any of them. You know, they're the crap dogs. Don't take them. You know, they might go to a different planet, and they're like, they're good, yeah. Different symbol. We'll have some of them.
Yeah. No, it's a new theory, mate. That is, I like that. And
I
yeah, it
haven't
could
got
be as
that
simple
theory
as
yet.
like
That's what it could be.
it could be like there's particular resources or whatever they're looking for, or this planet's got weapons, or it could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah.
So
And
like, so go on.
the theory with the things with like that, it could be anything. It could be this. Like, I always put an argument to people when they say about how old something is with exact with science. When they say about carbon dating,
Mm.
yeah, okay, the technology we got now will 100% say this rock is X amount of years old. What if there wasn't a superior race way before humans started? They created humans and they went, do you know what? This is going to be the best joke ever in about 10 million years. And they went, we're going to create all these rocks and everything. And in about 10 million years, they're going to create a machine that they think dates this rock. This is going to be hilarious, lads. We don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? Is you don't know, and you don't know. Like, if you're not a God-fearing person, where, like, I've got to be honest, I'm not religious, but I'm not like overly on board with like the universe just went bang, and then we all just came to be and evolved from. I kind of struggle with both.
Everything in the universe has got structure and it's got a chain of command, basically. Every aspect of our lives, family, work, everything. There's a chain of command, there's structure. In the universe, there's yin, yang, there's energy, there's structure. There's got to be higher powers controlling everything.
Yeah,
I can see the Big Bang might have created something, but you just can't create something from nothing.
yeah, that's the problem I have with it. I just, I I find it difficult to put into words sometimes. Like I just find it, like you say, just something appears from nothing. I find that very difficult. And
Yeah.
I might sound really ignorant, and I'm sure, like if I had a scientist here now, he'd say, "Oh no, well, it didn't come from nothing. This is how it happened, and this, that, and the other." But essentially, it came from nothing.
My argument
That's what I'm
there,
gonna say.
like, if someone can show me proof for something, I'll believe it, mate. I'm for
Yes.
science and religion. I just want to see proof.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm the
if you
same.
can
Yeah.
put something in front of my eyes, there is proof. Carbon dating, things like that, they can go, well, we've tested this over 300 years. Yeah, but you haven't tested it over 1,000,000. So how can you be 100% confident it works? You can't. You haven't tested it. Technically, that's still a theory. Unless you have tested something for it to 100% work, you don't know it's working. How can you?
Still in the theory stage, then, isn't it?
Technically, yeah. If you haven't tested it, you don't know it works 100%. The Hubble telescope, when they say, well, this particle has got to be so many light years away because of this, this, this. We don't know that. We've never gone that far. So what if there's not some alien sat on his own little moon with a mirror going, I'll reflect this one back to him. Watch this giggle, lads. We just don't know. And it could be that simple.
Yeah, and that's when I was younger, I used to struggle with the not knowing.
Yeah.
Like it used to pickle my brain, like not knowing like where we come from and why are we alive, and why we're just gonna die and this and that. It used to pickle my brain, something chronic. It probably was the chronic that did it, but anyway. The So do you know what? That's what I was going. Do you know what the people who study crop circles? Do you know what they're called? Who they are? What's their name?
No, what are they?
They're called cerealogists. Cerealogists, as in breakfast cereal. But so they've suggested over the years that the symbols are depicting their messages in another language left by alien life forms. And then another theory is that the signs are mistaken signals caused by intelligent life when they're visiting our planet, which, again, could be, but there's no way of proving it because you haven't got something like you could only prove that if you get in contact with that alien life form and they say, oh yeah, this is this message, this code is for this, and we were leaving that for this reason. So it's always going to be the unknown.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned to you before about those documentaries I watched by Rich Hall, and he then went on crop circles and sort of animal. He's done one on crop circles and one on animal mutilations and all that type of stuff. But the crop circles, when he interviewed these guys who've been investigating crop circles, all their life, and the one guy was, he was quite old. He was like 60, 70, but he'd been doing it all his life, going around Britain and probably out of Britain, I think, but certainly around Britain, studying them, taking samples, looking at them, interviewing people, and this type of stuff. And he was in this show. Obviously, there was a long show and there was various things, but one of the points he made was that there's a group of people who are linked to the government and one of the MI, what's it called, who do make the crop circles. They fake them, but they don't know why. They don't know why they fake them. And he had like some evidence of, proof of these people being paid by the government to make various crop circles around England. And it's, to me, that's just weird. Like I can't see what the benefit is to it, other than
my theory on that, because I've seen videos of that. My theory on that would be, if aliens are leaving these crop circles as messages, maybe the government has cracked that code and they've gone, hang on, we can't let anyone else find out about this. Let's throw a couple of our own little symbols in there.
Yeah, just to confuse people.
Symbols, no one's going to crack the code then, because you basically got a real code mixed in with a fake code that probably looks like 30 million different codes.
Yeah, and I suppose if it's like, for instance, if it was like a maths equation, which only a genius is gonna sort of work out.
Yeah.
But then, if you chuck in some random numbers or symbols in with all the real ones,
yeah,
those geniuses are not going to be able to differentiate, and they won't be able to crack it. So I suppose, yeah, from that point of view, I could see that. But I mean, it's not just Britain, or they've been in Russia, Japan, Canada. They're all over the world. Yeah. And they're often they can be circular overall, but they'll have different patterns and they'll be symmetrical, and it's they're quite complex in how they're made. They can be some burnt and bent and flattened. So it's not like a case of just a dude going out with like a scythe and like cutting. Like I think some people think there is, like you can see like people cut their grass or their hedges, or you'll see like a football pitch and it'll have like the grass swirling around the pitch.
Yeah.
It's not a case of that. They're not made like that. They're different lengths and they're burnt and they're bent, they're flattened and woven, and they're very complex. And in terms of crop circles, I don't know what else to say other than I don't know what they are. I find them interesting because I just think that they probably are linked to aliens. That's my overwhelming view, is I do think they're probably linked to aliens. I just haven't really got any proof to say that's why I think they are.
I follow you really there. I think that they've got to be linked to a higher form of intelligence because of how long ago when they first come around. And like you say, I think the government has cracked it and thought, we've got some of these messages. Because if you look in the 1600s, probably right up until 50, 60 years ago, crop circles were fair and far and few between. But nowadays, they're popping up left, right, and centre all over the world.
Yeah.
So I think in the last century, or even in the last half century, the government has cracked their code. Someone out there knows these messages.
Yeah, and the other thing I suppose as well is that, years ago, before, well, not even, only like 30, 40 years ago, where you didn't have like instant 24-hour news channels and internet and things like that, is you might not be we might not have been aware of how many crop circles were popping up all around the world. Like you might have seen the odd report at the end of the news saying, "Oh, crop circles appeared in Cornwall or wherever," like just like a easy sort of almost comical part of the news at the end, and that was all you would get. Whereas now, if they popped up, like say one popped up in like several different countries overnight tonight, that would be on the news tomorrow. And it would be, if it wasn't on the news, it would be all over Twitter and all over Facebook. So you don't quite know how rampant they were years ago, I guess is what I'm saying.
But the other thing that gets to me there, the people who do the research and etc., all this, something like that, a phenomenon like that, in any town, city, village would have been talked about, even 300 years ago. And that story would have passed on through the generations. And there's very, very little of them stories about. So it makes me think, back then, the ones that you did hear of, they're real. And there is a message there. But up until the last, like I say, 50, 60 years, when they've started popping up left, right and centre, if you could get the pictures of all the crop circles from before then, there's bound to be similarities between them and things.
Yeah, I mean, if you think there's over 10,000 crop circles since the first ones were sort of registered or, taken note of. So, like, if you imagine, if you had like a big hall and you printed them all out and you put them all on the floor, I bet you could work out, even if you couldn't work out like a pattern or a code, you'd be able to pick out certain symbols repeating or, different pictures, whatever it may be, different patterns. So, and then, of course, the difficulty is you don't know the reason for them. I know in some of them there's been like Greek letters and sort of mathematic symbols. So there is, I think I read somewhere, I was just looking then to see if I could find it. There was something about like the Pythagorean theory, which
the thing is that they're never exactly like the symbol. They're just similar to it, and there's enough people talk about it, enough people will believe it.
Yeah,
it's one of situations, I think.
So like this guy called Colin Andrews, he wrote a book on crop circles, which he researched and whatever. It was called Signs of Contact, and he claims that during his research he had actually seen aliens like form in the crop circles. He saw lasers and a ball of light and I can't think of the word, but like a homemade tornado coming from like a ship or whatever that produced a pattern of geometric shapes in the field which he was standing next to. Now, to me, if he saw that, why did I have to go researching and looking really, I had to really look into crop circles to find out that information. Like surely if me or you were in up the garth or up a mountain and seen that, do you know what I mean? You'd be telling every man and their dog.
Yeah, but
I have to go looking for that information quite deeply to find it.
You need someone else to see it as well, wouldn't you? Because let's be fair, if you went and told everyone that and no one else seen it, no one's going to believe you.
No, and maybe that is it. But I mean, I was trying to find out how well that book did.
I'm not being funny. If you're going somewhere like that, even 50 years ago, you're going to have some form of recording equipment, aren't you?
Yeah, especially if you're researching a book and you're trying to prove that your book's called Signs of Contact. So you're trying to prove alien life. You're trying to prove that aliens are doing these crop circles. If you're stood in a field in the night looking for crop circles to be made, surely you're going to take something. Even if it was like a dictaphone or a microphone to get the sounds of it.
You'd have something, definitely. And that's what you can't believe a story like that. You know, there's
weird,
no evidence to back it up other than his words.
yeah. So it's a weird one. I mean, but then, like we were saying,
But that statement, he probably didn't come out with that statement until very late in his career, when he had enough followers who'd back up his fake statement as such.
Well, it's either that, or he wanted to sell his book and he needed like a big proving moment, didn't he? So
the thing is, nowadays, there's always going to be people who'll believe you.
Oh God, yeah. When it comes to conspiracy theories, man,
they love it.
Spreads like wildfire. And I mean, you know, let's be honest. Me and you love it as well, and that's why we these shows, like, because we find them interesting and compelling. And if we got some spare time, we can end up down a rabbit hole of YouTube, watching, you know, this, that, and the other. But yeah, I'm not sold on the crop circles one way or the other. I gotta be honest. I'm like, I lean towards that it's probably something to do with aliens, but there's not enough there which makes me think, you know, like certain things, like the moon landing. I've got a definite theory and definite opinion of it, or like 9/11, I've got a definite opinion of it based on like the evidence and the things that I've researched myself. Whereas this, I can't find enough research and evidence to sway me. Like, I couldn't say for definite either way.
Yeah, I don't know if it's aliens. Like I said, I don't like saying aliens much. I prefer higher intelligence, because I think aliens is a word that's been created to make us fear it more.
Yeah, it's like a Hollywood word, isn't it?
Yeah, higher intelligence. There is definitely, whether it's our own human race in some super form who live on different planets or whatever it might be, there is definitely some form of higher intelligence out there. There's got to be. There's no way on this earth, you know, you go back through history and look at things and that, there's just no way on this earth that it could be done.
No, you're right. The so sorry. So just finishing off on the crop circles, there was the most complex circle ever seen in Britain was found in a barley field in Wiltshire. It was 150 meters in diameter, and it revealed a coded version of pi. And it was suggested that it was created by a mathematically minded alien on a trip to Earth. And like, to me, that's so vague, it's unbelievable. And I'm sure, like, if I had the pictures and the news reports to back it up, it would be a bit more detailed and you could form a better opinion of it. But like, you know, don't get me wrong, the size of it and the fact that it's got like a coded version of pi, that is really interesting, and I can see why it would be like, oh, you know, that is a you know, is that's got to be a code of some sort. Why would some random guy? So like, yeah, just saying it was suggested that it's created by a mathematically minded alien is just, that's just really like, it just doesn't mean anything. Do you know what I mean? It's like so much.
Their intelligence is going to be way beyond ours. So, like, Pythagoras' theorem to them would be like me and you doing our times table. It's not going to be a mathematically minded alien. Is going to be way beyond our mathematical capabilities.
Of course it is. And like, I'm sure I'm not a particular maths genius myself, but I'm sure there's more complex, like mathematical theories that they could have used. Do you know what I mean? Like, you learn pi in like high school or whatever.
Probably the mathematical theories of Facebook and their algorithms are more technical than pi.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird. But
Fibonacci. That's another amazing thing. Have you ever studied or looked at the Fibonacci sequence?
No, I don't think I have.
It's basically found in every single living thing.
Right, okay.
And it's a mathematical formula. I think it's It's something like 1347. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it can be found in the makeup and genetics of pretty much everything.
Oh, okay.
The old trilobites, the old
Yeah.
fossils. If you count the shells on that and like the rings and the way they split, it's the Fibonacci sequence.
All right. Okay.
So it's
All
some
right. Well, I'm gonna have a look at that after.
yeah. Have a look at it. The Fibonacci, Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo DiCaprio. He did Titanic. Leonardo da Vinci did loads with the Fibonacci sequence.
Oh, is it? That's
Yeah,
cool. I've never. I
well
don't
worth
think.
looking into. A lot of garden designers and things use it nowadays because it's right throughout nature.
Cool. I'm definitely gonna have a look at that. So like so moving away from crop circles, let's go on to let's start with animal mutilations because that's a bit more common than the human ones. Um, so the earliest known documented outbreak of unexplained livestock deaths occurred in the early 1606, just outside London, and some of the adjoining counties where there was whole slaughters of sheep made, uh, in some places up to like 100, in others it was less, where nothing was taken from the sheep but their their inward parts, their sort of organs, and they left like their carcasses and their fleece behind. Um, so like to me, that immediately rules out things like predators or other animals because they're not going to strip them of their organs and their their bits and whatever. And that's in 1606.
Back
So
then, I think it would be more explained by medicine and witchcraft.
yeah, I could buy that.
That would be my theory back then, because obviously we don't see pictures of it or anything like that. But if you look at some of the very early pictures that come out of some of the mutilations and things, they are mutilations.
Oh yeah,
But a
yeah,
higher form of intelligence doesn't have to do a mutilation. You look at the pictures of the ones where it looks like it's keyhole surgery and an
yeah,
animal
yeah,
being drained of blood. There's not many of them at all where the animal is, that's all it is, one little pinprick and they've been drained of blood. A lot of the time, organs and things are taken as well. So, but also, I think it's something like 98% of animal mutilations is on a cow.
yeah, yeah.
Reason being, the
So,
closest thing to humans DNA wise is a cow.
right,
So
okay.
my theory there, the, they want the blood, not the organs, because everything comes from blood.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like I say, there's some that you'll find it is just like a keyhole surgery, but the animal's totally drained the blood. There is, yes, we've got equipment and things that could do that, but why?
Yeah, there's no reason for it, is there? And I think, like again, going back to Rich Hall, is like in his documentary about it, you see like there was I want to say a goat, but it might have been a sheep, and it had like the side of his face stripped, but like it was literally the perfect cut
It was
around
a
one
goat.
side of his mouth, so you could just expose like his teeth and stuff.
Yeah, it was a
Taken
goat. I've
that
seen the
part
picture.
and like took like a part of his anus and stuff, and it's like, but it was done in a way that everything else was perfectly intact. And to me, there's no reason for that. Like, there's no like you can't put it down to like kids because if it was like teenagers or kids like pissed up doing causing trouble, they would just like cut it or stab it or whatever you want to say, or push it over, or do you know what I mean? Like if that's not an excuse. So like these are some of the most common uh, mainstream or whatever you want to call it explanations for like the animal mutilation cases. Some of them I think are a bit piss poor, to be honest. So like for the missing or mutilated mouth, lips, anus, or genitalia, they're explained as a contraction of missing or damaged areas due to dehydration. The action of small scavengers, burrowing parasites seeking to enter or consume the body in areas where the skin is thinnest. So that's for the mouth, the lips, the anus, and the genitalia. They're like the excuses. Because to me, they're not explanations, they're excuses.
Yeah.
Because straight away, that picture which I just described from the documentary, there's no way in hell that was dehydration or like
it
parasites
was
or anything.
surgical tools at the very least.
And same as what you were just saying with the blood. That's that's not like, if it's like leeches, they don't form like this perfect, or like little parasites or like bugs and flies. They don't form this perfect rectangle or this perfect hole and drain the blood. They swarm and they're everywhere and they're random.
And it's
they
a
go where the
mutilation.
blood is.
It's not a drained body, it is a mutilation. All the ones where you see the animal ripped open and bits missing and all this.
You can put that down to just animals, can't you? It could be a fox.
When it comes up and they say there's a dead animal and all its blood's gone.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there is still some people who are into their witchcraft and herbal medicine and whatnot, and they probably do use the blood of every single animal out there.
God, yeah. But it's not like a common
But it's not enough for them about for it to be as widespread as it is, and in as many different countries it is. In the back remote yards of Mongolia, Argentina, it's found in all
places where especially like places where perhaps you haven't got the technology, like even little basic things like scalpels and the intricate tools need to do the removal of these organs or the blood. Like some countries, some poorer countries, and they haven't got them easily accessible to Joe Blogs in the street. So, so who's doing it? Like who's coming along and doing those things?
Most of the mutilations you can put down to animal attack. It's as simple as that, isn't it? When the animal is ripped apart and there's things missing and that, it's pretty fucking obvious what it is. But when there's surgical cuts,
there's a big difference, isn't it?
There's a little surgical cut on the belly and 4 of the organs missing. I don't know no panther that goes around with a scalpel and rubber gloves and can hit that job. There's crazy people out there who might go do it, but I think it's happened too often, and there's not that many crazy people who are that specific.
It's happened so much over the years that I just don't think you can realistically put it down to crazy people or teenagers or predators or bugs. Do you know what I mean? So go to those explanations. The explanations. So these are like, the BBC or someone, mainstream media, this is what they would put out, or they generally put out as the excuses. So the explanations, they call them, for surgical incisions in the skin are explained as tears in the skin created when it is stretched by post-mortem bloat or as dehydration causes the animal's hide to shrink and split, often linear cuts. Incisions are caused by scavengers or predators, possibly exacerbated by the above. Now that is the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard in 2 sentences in my life.
Yeah, totally.
It's bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
If I showed my kids like the pictures of those animals, and then I said, this is how it's caused, and I read those sentences, they would question it straight away. They'd be like, hang on a minute.
Right, when they say about a bloated animal stretching the skin and a perfect tear becoming, have you ever been around a bloated animal when a tear becomes in that skin? I used to work for the council years ago, and one of the wagons we had was called Environmental Protection Wagon. And basically, we used to have to go around and pick up roadkill and things like that. And I remember there was a cow washed up on one of the Vale beaches, and they couldn't get a JCB to access it. Basically, a team had to burn the cow on the beach, but it was bloated. The head had been totally smashed in on the rocks and things where it had been washed up. The belly's all bloated, and we had to pop that belly before we could burn it because of the methane, etc. When a belly has a little tear in it or anything like that, it doesn't just go bzzz and deflate. You have the whole innards and everything explode everywhere. So that tear becomes a massive opening, not a little surgical incision. So that's absolute bollocks.
It's not even like
my 4-year-old would question that.
I find it puzzling that that's even a thing.
You can come up with something better than that. You could say it fell on a stick. That's a better fucking excuse than that.
Something. Another, so the absence of blood is explained by these people as blood pooling in the lowest points of the body where it will break down into basic organic components. Blood that is external to the body or in the area of the wound being consumed by insects or reduced by solar desiccation. So basically, either it's insects and then the sun, or the blood all goes down to one part of the body, which is, again, I find,
So you're telling me when a human passes away, they're put in a coffin, lowered in the ground, all the blood goes to their ass, and then it disappears?
Sure.
Come on! They got to come up with better excuses than this.
But it's not like just like when you see what they do with the chickens, with the halal chicken, where they just cut their neck or whatever, and they let it bleed everywhere, right? It's not that. When these animals are drained of blood, it's not where someone's cutting it open and then they've just drained it, just let it drip into a tub.
Yeah, there's no sign of blood on the exterior of the animal.
No, it's like a keyhole surgery, isn't it? So that's not caused by insects or solar desiccation or the blood pooling going to the lowest points of the body. It's just not.
The only insect I know who could do that is fucking Ant-Man.
Yeah, absolutely, because he just shrink it all and then...
it's absolute crap in it. There's no... One insect could maybe make a small hole. One insect isn't going to drain an animal of blood.
No.
There would be holes all over it. You're not going to have... There's no scavenger out there that will make a little cut and suck the blood out. I know leeches do, but how many...
It's not a perfect whole cut, is it?
No, it's like a little circle of bruises, like a little dot. But how many of them would you need on a cow to drain in the blood? And how long would they take? Like they're saying about the blood leaving the body and all this. There's animals that, farmers know their land. They know their animals. They don't go months without seeing their animals. They'll probably go a week or two. In that space,
these cases, they happen overnight, mate, like the crop circles.
This is what I mean. It's absolute... Nothing is going to leave the body in that amount of time.
No.
You probably won't even start smelling that bad.
Just it. And that's what these are the sorts of things with the whatever you want to call it, mainstream media or whatever, whatever, just the sort of general consensus, if you like, is they're not even good excuses or explanations.
No, because the one thing that makes me
should not buy that.
The one thing that makes me question that more than anything, I remember watching a video probably before DVDs came out. We're talking 15, 20 years ago. And to this day, I can't find it again. But there was a cow that had a minor incision and all the blood drained from it. And it was on the side of a road, basically. And they pulled this cow to move it. But when they pulled it, rigor mortis hadn't set in. It was still a little bit floppy. No way on this earth can the blood leave the body before rigor mortis sets in. And that video was, to me, was one of the things that convinced me of it almost. That was my proof. Rigor mortis would set in long before blood is drained from your body.
just it annoys me is what, like, one of the things about a lot of conspiracy theories, or like even just news in general, is when you get these piss poor explanations, and I look around as if I'm waiting for everyone to sort of say, well, no, that's bollocks, and people just accept what they're told by, it's like it comes out their telly box, so it must be true. And it bugs me because those explanations are not even good explanations.
No.
Or even, like, not for even a second do I, like, think, oh, maybe, not even a little bit.
Some of that, I don't think it comes down so much to everyone being so mindless. A lot of people are, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is laziness because the answer's not there. If they don't accept that answer, they got to go find the answer themselves. So they're like, oh, that'll
You just
do.
got to jump on Google, innit? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's in
but
your
even
phone's
that,
in your hand. Like,
unless you want to know the answers,
yeah,
people
I
will always
guess.
take the easy way out. Like, we're them people, we want to know more. I want to know why, I want to know who, I want to know where.
Yeah, and I guess that's like a knock-on effect from, like, the internet and phones and stuff as well. It's almost like that. Well, I don't want to say laziness, but like, it's almost like you've got your Netflix and everything to hand constantly. So why would you want to go and find out something which is on the TV, which you think, oh, that's not right? Because maybe 20 years ago, when you didn't have as many distractions in terms of devices and Netflix and internet and stuff, you might have been more inclined to sort of think, oh, that doesn't sound right, and maybe I'll look into that, which is stupid because back then it would have been a lot harder to look into something than it is now. Like,
Yeah.
now you just literally flick Google, or if you can't be bothered to type in, ask Siri or Alexa or whatever, innit?
Yeah.
So the last one on the explanations is for the missing or mutilated eyes or soft organs missing, explained. And they're often explained as the action of carrion feeding insects such as blowflies, and opportunistic or carrion birds such as vultures, which are known to direct themselves towards an animal's eyes and to enter the body through the openings of the mouth and anus to feed on the softer organs. See, that's, out of all of them, that one is the one which I wouldn't say that I necessarily believe, but it's got a little bit of credibility. I feel like I don't necessarily think that explanation to be true, but it makes at least a little bit of sense in terms of
Totally.
blowflies or the
Yeah.
vultures going into the carcass to get the eyes and whatever. But again, when you see some of these where the eyes have been removed and stuff, like, it's still, it's surgical. It's not
Yeah.
like a vulture is going to rip into the eyes and try and, like, he's like trying to gouge into it, or he's like
Yeah.
ripping through the anus or the orifices to get inside the body to eat the meat.
Yeah.
So, like,
It's not surgically removed.
yeah, it's not like, so even though that's got a bit more, like, credibility to me, it's still not, like, at least with that one, I can see it a little bit. The others were just plain bollocks. So another sort of hypothesis which people have regarding, like, these mutilations and removal of organs is that they're done by cults, which, whilst you don't always hear that there's a lot of cults around, I was trying to find. I had written it down somewhere, but I can't find it now. There was like a number of the amount of cults currently in the UK, and it was actually quite a surprising number. There was much more than what you'd think.
I bet across the world there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands.
God, yeah. But then,
So that to me is one of the most explainable answers for it all. Because
yes,
with cult, you're going to have humans who are capable of doing these things. You know, you could easily have a top surgeon who's in some weird pagan cult.
Yeah, and like the absence of blood at mutilation sites, could they say like it could indicate that the cult members like they harvest it, but then to me, I think like how many cult if it's just a cult and they just want to harvest their blood for like a ceremony or whatever, would they take the time to learn how to do surgically, or would they just do like what the halal, like what they do with the chickens and stuff, and just cut it and drain it?
You say that there, like I said, cults can attract anybody. Look at Scientology.
Yeah, of course.
You know, some of the most famous people in the world are Scientologists. And with things like that, they could easily have top surgeons who are in this cult, top vets, surgeons, doctors, even nurses.
It takes a vet, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, all they need is a bit of pigskin, bit of practice. They're there. They're not actually doing an operation as such. They just got to know how to surgically remove something.
Yeah, I think the one thing which doesn't sync up for me in terms of the cult is like it says like, oh, that these animals have been like ritually sacrificed, and it's like, well, no, that doesn't add up to me.
No, they'd have a throat slit.
Sacrifice them, and they're going to slit the throat,
yeah,
not surgically remove parts of the body and organs and take a little bit of the, you know, you're just going to do it.
9 times out of 10, they're doing it on an altar or
some sort
of church or whatever it might be to them, you know, a stone, a rock, whatever it might be, not just in the middle of a field, in the middle of a herd.
Yeah.
I can totally get cults going there and taking eyes and organs and things like that, blood even. I can totally get all that, but they're not going to sacrifice the animal there and then, unless it's a group of hippies high on LSD and it's just the right time, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like the cult theory was quite popular in the 70s and 80s because you had quite a few famous cults in like America with like Jonestown and stuff, which I'm sure we'll do at Jonestown at some point. But and like satanic abuse and satanic sort of cults and stuff. But whilst I can see the logic behind people thinking, oh yeah, it's cults doing the like animal mutilations, I think the ones where it's surgical, I tend to still lean towards probably not cults, but certainly the mutilations, the eyes, things like that. I can see that. Yeah, you know, I can see that.
I'm with you there, part way. The cults, even the surgical removal of organs and things like that, I can totally believe that could be cults or just a whack job. Mm-hmm. It's when it's drained the blood. Because I know this is going to be a whole different episode, but studying cults, things like that, there's not many where they use the blood.
Mm.
You know, they'll only use little amounts of it, which they probably have their own animal to do it from.
Yeah.
You know,
you're right.
If you're a cult that's got the capability to do this surgical incision, all this sort of stuff, you're just going to go and buy a fucking cow. You know, you can all clip in. You ask £1.80 each, lads, we get a live cow. Job done.
Yeah.
They're not going to go to a field.
Draw attention to yourself, and
unless it is like, you know, a Charlie Manson, Jonestown type cult, they're going to more for exposure as well eventually. But, you know, anyone can get hold of a cow cheap enough, or a sheep, or whatever you want.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that throws me off there. But it's the total draining of blood from a body. Even cults, it's not rationally explained. Cults don't do that. It's witchcraft, maybe, but you would need surgical equipment to, you know, just pop a small hole in and drain the blood. Because the one thing with this draining of the blood, they don't find any other marks or instrument to show that the animal was sedated first or killed first. There's no way, even with surgical things we've got, you'd have to inject it with an anaesthetic first.
Yeah, because they would go nuts, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and then drain it. So obviously, whatever it is that's just popping into this animal, It's just, nullifying them straight off. Explain that.
Yeah, and there's
One thing
never any,
I can't find an explanation to.
there's never any evidence of like things like clamps being used, or
No, nothing
different
at all.
instruments that you might use to hold it in place to make sure you can cut perfect. These
Even if it was human
vertical
physically
shapes.
holding the animal, there'd be
It's not
marks to
ridiculous,
show
is it?
struggle, strain, stress.
Yeah,
There'd be marks in the ground around it. But they've even
yeah,
taken soil samples from some of these where the soil underneath the animal has given off different readings to all the soil around it. And that's going to be nothing with the decomposure of the animal or anything. It's unexplained.
yeah, yeah.
They're
You're
not
right. Yeah.
theories, but it's
It's weird.
unexplained. The
And
main thing, like I say, the main thing that makes me believe it's got to be aliens or something is when they're drained of blood and there's only one puncture wound. How did they subdue the animal first, and how did they get all the blood out?
yeah, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
So obviously, another explanation would be local folklore of unknown creatures. So you could have your I can't say this word, so I'm going to butcher it.
chupacabra,
That's the one. So I'm going to need to
chupacabra.
butcher it.
Yes,
Or
that's the
like,
Mexican one.
there's a rumor of like a panther, isn't there? In I think it's
Uh,
northwest England, up like Dartmoor or something.
yeah, we've had a few big cats around that way, haven't we? And Argentina, they have panthers roaming the landscape and
Mm.
that.
Or
But
like
I,
not yetis,
I,
or
I like the mythical creatures, your yetis, your chupacabras, all them. I'm into all
yeah.
that.
So yeah, and if those things exist, then they could be responsible for mutilating animals, but they ain't gonna surgically
No,
remove its organs or drain its blood or take its eyes. They're gonna rip it to pieces and eat it.
they do
Not,
say though that every legend is based on a fact somewhere.
yeah,
So what's not to say that this chupacabra was actually an alien that somebody spotted a few hundred years ago? The description of it is obviously changed over time, and then it's turned into some big devil thing that comes into your bedroom in the middle of the night.
I know. I'm not that familiar with those. I gotta be honest. So we'll probably, like I said, we'll do a show on them, because obviously there's so many different different mythological or
Yeah.
unknown creatures around the world, which have got like these sort of local folklore. And
Yeah, I think the chupacabra is like right across Mexico and anyone
yeah, I
Latino.
was going to say
It's a big one
South
amongst them.
American, isn't it?
I think it's their Yeti, basically. That's our big thing. And well, Nessie is the biggest one we got in Britain, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's the chupacabra? What is it? Like what's like a like a yeti type thing? Is it, or
It's some kind of devil that comes for. I think people can either summon it as a demon or it comes for the bad people. I can't remember it exactly.
well,
I
we'll
think it's
we'll have
along the lines of summoning up a demon, though.
yeah. Oh, okay. We'll have a look into that one show.
Yeah.
So what are we saying then? Crop circles. We don't know either way. We're got no evidence to, or nothing to sway us for an
The,
opinion.
my highest theory is it's a form of messaging.
Yeah, yeah, I go along with
But
that.
there's so many questions that go against that. That if they're this higher form of intelligence, they don't need to leave a big fucking stamp on the planet. They can just text their mate.
Yeah, and I think if someone told me like, right, you're gonna die unless you make a decision one way or the other, I'd say that it's probably aliens communicating in some sort of code. But I'm not like, it's not something that I'm really uh, strongly opinionated about in terms of swaying either way. In terms of the animal mutilations, as far as I'm concerned, that is some sort of uh, either higher intelligence, as you call them,
Yep.
or it's government experiments. But I can't see the point in it being government experiments, because if the government wanted to experiment in that way, they would just get the animals and take them to their lab and do it.
Yeah.
So it's just no point. It's not like cows are illegal and there's a shortage of them, so they can't get them in the lab and do these things themselves, which kind of, to me, and because the conventional explanations are so piss poor, to me, it's got to be the sort of higher intelligence stroke alien type of thing.
Yeah. But again, I'm one of them that'll keep questioning everything. My only thing against that is, because the government's excuses are so piss poor, have they made them that piss poor to throw us off the scent that it is the government?
Yeah, it just makes no sense, does it? If it's the government, like, I can't think of a legitimate angle or reason why they would do that, or why they would need to do that. It just is the closest thing I can think of an explanation to it, to like the animal mutilation and the organs being taken and the blood being drained, is cults. I can't think of any other reason, or like conventional reason, outside of that. Because if it was like kids, horrible kids, but if it was like kids and teenagers, they wouldn't do it in that way.
No.
If it was predators or insects or whatever, all the other crappy excuses, it wouldn't be in that way. And even with the cults, I know you said like they could have vets and surgeons and, part of their cults. Of course they can. And I do agree with that completely. I also think if they're going to sacrifice an animal, they would do it on their altar, or whatever they want to use, and they wouldn't be worrying too much about how they do it. However, if they need certain parts for like things like that witchcraft type of angle, then yeah, they've got a vet or a nurse or someone who takes blood for a living or whatever it may be, a phlebotomist, and if they've got anyone like that within their cult, then of course they'll use their skills to harvest the organs for their ceremonies. So, that is the closest thing to an explanation, or a conventional explanation, should we say.
Yeah. For mutilated animals, there's loads of explanations that are totally believable. It's just the one that gets me is where there's one puncture wound and it's drained of blood. How do you subdue an animal
without even any trace whatsoever?
There is no explanation of it. And they can't have fed it something because surely it'd contaminate the blood. So why drain it? I don't get it.
And don't forget, we didn't discuss this at all, is there's never any footprints or evidence that someone's been there to do it either
whatsoever.
So like if you think, particularly in Britain, those fields for 90% of the year are a boggy mess. So if you walk into a field and you do those things, you'll leave a trail. There will be a footprint.
Something.
Yeah, some sort of evidence, a cigarette butt, whatever it may be, a chewing gum wrapper, a bottle top, or even just like a lid off your equipment where you're unwrapping it to drain the blood or whatever.
Forensics and everything they got nowadays, they'd have found something.
Yes. So there we are for crop circles and animal mutilation. It's no definitive one way or the other decision for both of us, really. Maybe the mutilations, we were a bit more leaning towards the conspiracy theory side of it, but it's always fun to talk about. So you can find Rhys on Twitter is at ShoreCeltic. You can find us on Twitter at acecast_Nate. Please subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications so you get notified every time we upload a video. That's the quickest and best way to support the show. You can also follow us on Facebook, Ace Podcast Nation, where you can send questions to request shows, particularly for the conspiracy theory shows. If you want us to look into something and do a show on it, send it to Facebook and we'll do it. And lastly, I would like to say we're starting a monthly podcast on films and trailers and the latest movies and TV. And I'm looking for suggestions for the name of that podcast. So you can send them into Facebook or Twitter. For now, we will see you later. Thanks, Rhys, again, mate. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking.
Always a pleasure, Si.
And we'll be back next week at some point for Conspiracy Theories episode 4. Thank you for watching. Cheers, guys. Nice one.
Bye.